Today's lesson is going to be on 7018. We're going to use 1/8 inch electrode in the flat position. So we're going to be completing this flat fillet weld, okay? First thing that you guys will need, this is a 3 inch by 6 inch piece of 3/8 plate, okay? You're gonna need one of those. And then this is 1.5 inches wide by 6 inches long. And we actually have two of these because we're making an X block, not just a single T-joint. You know, you can do both depending on time. We don't know if we're gonna have one or both of these on there. So first thing you're gonna do, you're gonna set this up right on the table, all right? And then you're going to make sure that you are setting this directly in the center, all right? Once you put this in the center here, we're going to fire up our machine and we're going to put a tack weld right here and on the opposite side, okay? Now, what you don't want to do is tack weld on each of the sides where you're actually going to be welding. You know, the reason being, you don't want to go over a hump of the weld. If you have to put a tack weld on there, it's best to grind that smooth. It's called feathering it out. So you feather that out, that way you could burn back through that tack, okay? Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna set our we're gonna set our welding machine to, for 7018 1/8 inch electrode, that's going to be between 115 and 140 amps. This first pass that I'm going to do is going to need to have a little bit more heat in it, so I might try and turn it up to 140 amps. I'm going to turn that up to 140 amps. That way I can ensure that I'm getting good penetration into this first weld, okay? Same thing, we're using our 7018 1/8 inch electrode. Okay, we're gonna stick it in our electrode holder. First thing I'm gonna do, tack weld, okay? We're gonna tack weld right here on the edge and on the other side. Now make sure that this tack is bigger than, just, a little quick tack. You make sure that you got some meat on there, all right? So we're gonna hold this here with one hand. Okay, we're gonna put just a tack weld right on the edge, okay? Now, if you look, this is starting to pull up, okay? So when you tack weld the other side, make sure you push that down. That way you can close the gaps, okay? In the flat position, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but if you're working in a different position, having a gap there is going to make it more difficult for you guys to be able to weld, okay? So we're gonna put this on the side here. Okay, now our fillet weld is ready to be welded. Okay, we're not going to set this one up, and I'm going to show you guys an easy way to put this. All right, so first off, this is not the flat position. Okay, this is the horizontal position. So we need to take this joint and we need to move it to where it's going to be in the flat position. Now, the flat position is where your joint is. Not where the metal is, but where the joint is, so where the rod is going to be facing. This would be the flat position. This would be the horizontal position, okay? So we need to make sure that this gets up. Now, this can be in a whole bunch of different places, right? So easiest way to make sure that this is at a 45-degree angle is to get a speed square and set it up there. Okay, we're gonna take our speed square. We're gonna set it up just like that. Now, what we can do is we can tack this on our table, okay? First thing we're gonna do is get it comfortable. See how that's sitting at a 45-degree angle? Okay, we'll set it there. We're gonna hold it, and then we're gonna tack it in place. Now you'll be able to remove your speed square, and this is sitting at our 45-degree angle. Now, it's always good to clean off the areas where you had tacked, and throw a nice little pass of your wire brush in there to make sure that this is clean. Now, I will say, to maximize your results, you would want to grind and buff these. That way you have a nice clean piece of material, okay? Not necessarily for practice, but it's a good habit to get into. Okay, same thing. We want to get rid of that, that solidified slag that's on the end there. And this first pass, okay, this joint itself is at a 90-degree angle, okay? First pass that we're going to do, we're going to split that right in half. So we're going to be at a 45-degree work angle, okay? Because this would be 90 degrees. So this is technically a 45-degree work angle, okay? With a 10 to 15-degree travel angle, okay? We're going to drag it right along here, okay? Now remember, just like before, you guys can put these any way that you want in your stingers, okay? They can go either way. Now this might be a little bit more difficult to weld with this angle. It works good for the vertical position, but this might be okay to start out in the flat position, okay? Until you get to, you know, about halfway, and then it'd be better to move this straight on, okay? So we're gonna start out, we're running at 139 amps. Now this first pass is the most important pass. You need to make sure that you're tying in to both sides of the material equally, okay? So you want to put that rod directly in the center. If it's unequal and you're welding on one side, you're essentially just putting a weld there. You're not bonding the two metals together, okay? So you want to equally distribute the weld onto both of these plates, okay? So we're going to go ahead and fire up here. 10 to 15-degree angle. Nice and slow. Ran out of rod there towards the end. Now, your first pass is always going to be the most difficult to remove the slag on. Let it cool down for a second. Like I said, when you're making that, that fillet weld, for some reason, that first weld is the most difficult weld to get off of here. Gotta do double the work here. Okay, so after we make our first pass, we have to make sure that there's no slag in there, because you're not going to be able to burn through that slag. All you're going to do is you're going to put a weld on top of that slag, and it's not going to penetrate into the metal. Okay? Now, for our next pass, okay, we were straight on here. All right, now the second pass, we're going to take half of that first pass. Okay, we're going to take it and we're going to angle towards our right side. Okay, so now when you start to build your fillet welds, you're going to start at one end and work your way to the other. You're not going to put a weld on the right side, a weld on the left side, a weld in the middle. That's not how it works. Now, if you need to do what's called landscaping, yes, that's going to be a little bit different, but as far as structurally welding, you need to make sure that you're working from left to right or right to left, whatever's more comfortable for you. Okay. So our next weld, we're going to drop this about 30 degrees or so and perform a weld right on that right side. Okay. Now you can just set up like this. Make sure you're only taking half of that previous weld away. Here we go. And you can go a little bit faster for this second weld. Then when you get to your edge here, make sure that you're wrapping around this joint. Don't stop directly on the end, you want to keep going, okay? Now let it cool down for a second. Like I said, that first weld is such a pain to get all this stuff out, so make sure you take extra time when you're cleaning that first weld. Second weld, a little bit of scraping. Just like in the flat position, that weld's going to scrape right off. Okay. Gonna double things up here. Okay, we removed half of that first weld. Sorry, doing all this stuff with electronics becomes a little bit more difficult. Okay, same thing. Make sure you're clearing that slag out of there. Okay, now I could probably put this at a slight angle. So now, rather than being straight on, I just want to angle it slightly to the left side. Okay, we're going to make sure that we tie in that bead that we just laid into the base metal on the other side. It's more important to tie in the beads together. You can always throw another pass onto the base metal, but you always want to make sure you're tying that bead in with the new bead first, okay? Here we go. Okay, now I stopped at the halfway point because I'm gonna need to switch out my electrodes. Okay, now if you have to switch out your electrodes and continue welding, you don't need to clean the entire weld. All you need to do is clean that spot where you're going to restart your weld. After you're done, welding, you can clean the entire weld, but you don't need to clean the entire weld just to finish your weld. Okay, now we're going to fire up where we left off. Okay, we're gonna let our puddle cool. Make sure we got a nice clean weld here. We don't want to be too far up on one side. All right. So now, after we have, that was our third total pass, right? So our 4th, 5th, and 6th passes are going to be, I like to start at the right side and work my way to the left. So my first pass on top is going to be tying the top post here into our weld, okay? There's the toe of the weld here, the top of that. You're going to weld that, you're going to make that weld right along that line, okay? And then the second pass is going to be in the center, tying that first weld into the second weld. And then your third pass across is going to be tying that second pass into your base metal on the other side, okay? This should be done in 3 passes. If there's a chance where you take your weld and you're up here too far, then you might have to do it in 4 passes. But you need to make sure you try and get that done in 3 passes. Until the next time where it's going to be 4 passes. Okay? So now, same thing. Right here, we're going to move our angle up, perform another weld right along here. There we go. Now notice how I'm using this table to my advantage. You know, I'm resting my elbow on there. If you have the opportunity to rest your elbow, rest your arm, do it. It's only going to make your weld come out. Okay, here's our 4th weld, okay? First of the 3 that goes across the top. Now we're gonna put 2 more across there. One tying into there, and the other one tying into the other side. Now, same thing. I'm just using a used electrode, so I'm only probably only gonna make it about halfway across. Okay, here we go. Thing, just need to clear out. We're going to restart that weld. Okay. Fire back up. Letting our slag cool. This piece of metal is pretty hot now, okay? The hotter the metal gets, if you're not cooling it down, you're gonna need to go a little bit faster with your travel speed. Notice how I'm always using 2 hands when I am cleaning out this weld. Don't be afraid to push with that chipping hammer. Wire brush, that is. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to make one more weld, tying that middle bead into the base plate on the other side. Okay. So one more weld. Okay, and when you get to the end here, once it starts getting real hot, instead of just dragging that rod across, what I like to do is I like to do like a little weaving motion to help build that end up before I drop my rod out. Okay, this is what our these are 6 total beads. This is what a 3-pass cover would look like. Okay. There's going to be a time where you're going to make more than just 6 total welds to complete this, but for demonstration purposes,